Hi, I wanted to make a short video on the situation that's happening in Mississippi about Nolan Wells. I am an aquatic manager. I have been in the aquatic industry for almost 25 years. I have worked as an aquatic director, a boating director in New York for a little bit on a lake. I worked in Wisconsin on a few lakes. Um, I worked in a lakefront of Chicago where the water could be a little rough and sometimes pretty calm and easy, but sometimes rough too. Um, Worked in swimming pools. I have trained probably over 1,000 lifeguards during my career. I still teach swimming for adults, especially for adults. Um, had a pretty long career as in the aquatic industry, and I'm very proud of that. The reason why I'm making this video is because some people in social media said that the possibility of Nolan Wells having an accidental drowning is far fetched. I don't think so. I think that um the possibility of him drowning is very much likely what happened, in my opinion. Obviously, there's still an investigation. Um, was there foul play? Maybe. Um, I still believe that let the investigation prove that. But from what I'm hearing and from what I'm seeing from my uh, expertise on the aquatic industry and this profession that I have worked for almost 25 years, there is a possibility that he drowned. And I would like to kind of break that down for you. Now, Horn Island, it sounds like it's seclusive island. There's no lifeguards. There from what I'm hearing, there is no lifeguards on duty. Uh, there is no lifeguard patrol boats. We have lifeguard patrol boats in Chicago when I worked, and we have lifeguards on duty stationed throughout the lakefront. Um, from what I'm hearing, there was no lifeguards on duty, and there was no lifeguard patrol boats. Okay. Um, the possibility of Nolan Wells drowning is, for me, is probably the most likely thing that probably happened. Um, People are thinking or saying on social media that Nolan Wells could have been spotted, right? So let's talk about that. Um, Probably Nolan Wells got into the water. When he got into the water, um, when you get into the water and when you get into a bad situation, the window of you getting help is very, very small. Okay. We're not talking about like you're going to have 5, 7 minutes of yelling for help. That doesn't happen when you get into a bad situation. And I'm thinking that maybe he got into the water. One, the first mistake is if there's no foul play. If he got into the water, he didn't let anybody know he got in the water on his own. So that means he got in the water by himself, not informing anyone that he was getting into the water. This happens all the time. People get into the water, especially young adults that know how to swim or feel that they're very athletic and they feel that they could handle the currents and the water. That's a bad recipe for a bad situation. Um, Individuals sometimes get into the water. The current is probably very, very strong. And a lot of these individuals, when they get into the water, from what I have gathered and from what I have heard, and for over the 25 years that I have done this, individuals get into the water. They're probably having a good time. They're probably in 4 feet, 5 feet. They get into 6 feet. They probably feel a little bit of the current a little bit, not too strong. But when they get in deeper, that's where the situation could happen, all right? There could be waves or something. I don't know if there was waves at Horn Island, but I'm just trying to inform people that when individuals get into the water in a situation like this, it could happen very, very fast. So that saying that people are saying that you have like this huge window of time to yell for help and somebody's going to spot you, no, that's not true. Okay? It could happen very quickly. You could get into the water, you could be swimming, and the first thing that happens, I believe that Nolan Wells became a distress swimmer. And usually individuals that age will try to fight through the current, the situation. Probably the waves are coming in. They took in a little bit of water through their mouth or their nose, and they're trying to reassess the situation to get back into shore or something. And they usually don't call for help. Maybe he was as a distress swimmer. Probably he believed that he could get out of that situation as a swimmer since he was a pretty strong athlete. But that's where it starts to get pretty dangerous, because if you're by yourself, you didn't tell anybody that you were getting into the water, then you're trying to figure this out, trying to get back to shore, then it gets and multiplies to something even worse. Now you're kind of struggling. Now you're taking in more water through your mouth and your nose. Now you become an active drowning victim. When you're an active drowning victim, it's very hard to call for help. Okay, you're taking in water through your mouth, through your nose. Okay, that's impeding your airway, right? The water. How can you yell for help for people to hear you if you're taking in water? Obviously, you guys are adults. You have taken in water, probably a sip of water. You probably take it in the wrong. You probably take it in wrong, and you start coughing. Can you yell for help? No. Imagine you're in an ocean, you're in a lake, you're in a river, you take in water. It's pretty hard to call for help. So, I believe that he was a distress swimmer trying to get out of a bad situation. Then he was probably trying to get out of that situation. Then he became an active drowning victim. He was probably taking in water. He was probably yelling for help. But like I said, that window is pretty small. It's probably seconds, 30 seconds. Okay? Maybe 30 seconds. When there's hundreds of boats out there and thousands of people out there, they're having fun. And I'm not trying to excuse the people that were there, okay? I'm pretty sure the people that were there that day, they weren't there to be like, I'm going to lifeguard 1,000 people right now. No, they were there having fun. People that are there, you have to be an adult. You need to know that there's no lifeguards on duty here. You have to be careful. So I'm pretty sure people assumed that was the case. And when you have 15, 30 seconds, 45 seconds to call for help, that's not very much time. Okay? Especially when you have a lot of people around there talking, drinking, having fun and stuff like that. Something bad could happen. People on social media are saying it's far-fetched for him to drown. I don't think so. I believe this was an accidental drowning. I believe that Nolan Wells drowned accidentally. He went into the water, like I said. He took in some water. He was probably trying to get back to shore. and he put himself in a bad situation, and probably the current was too strong. Remember, currents could move houses, could uproot trees, okay? Could move cars. I always tell my swimmers, little bitty you, huge body of water, okay? You're not going to win over the force of the water. It's impossible, okay? You have to be very, very careful. I think that Nolan Wells got into a situation where he assumed he was going to be okay, and he just gradually got worse and ended up taking his life. Is there a possibility there was foul play? Yes, that possibility is still could have happened. Yes, but from what I'm hearing, I think it was an accidental drowning. Obviously, my condolences to the family. I hope that the investigators are doing everything to get answers for the family. I also want to send out a shout out to Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum. I did watch a lot of your interviews of the boys, and I watched a lot of stuff online. I don't think this was a race thing. I think, in my opinion, it's an accidental drowning, and we shouldn't rule that out. Okay, if that's what happened, we should just accept it. In my profession, I have heard of hundreds of accidental drownings throughout my career. It's something that's not like taboo. This happens, okay? Unfortunately, it happens. And it happens with a lot of kids as well. That's why I teach kids how to swim, and I teach adults how to swim. My condolences to the Wells family. But this is a possibility, and that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.